Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It was such a nice time to see you last time. Those who don't know what we are talking about, please go and watch the previous episode. It was such a beautiful thing. It was such a nice feedback from you, especially some of the friends that came into my DMs to give me feedback of what I'm supposed to do, how I improved, how it was all looking nice. So it was such an encouraging thing. I liked it so much. So I expect the rest of the people to also do the same. And please share these things because they're very important for me, very important for all of us. This information needs to be heard everywhere, right? So I just welcome you back to my channel. Please sit down, listen up to the end, because if you don't listen up to the end, there are some things you won't understand. Information is key. Information is very important for you to gain knowledge from this that I'm talking about. Topic: last time, as I promised you, I had said the 4 pillars of East African community. They have got 4 pillars that serve as the foundation for the integration efforts. The first one is common markets. What is common market, if you can ask? The common market is the pillar that aims to establish a single market within the East African region where goods, services, labor, and capital can move freely across borders. This is intended to create a larger and more integrated economic space for the member states, fostering economic growth and development. Don't lose me, because maybe reading it long might have taken you a process to understand, but I'm going to explain it in layman's language. The common market is where there's a single market within the region. Goods, services, labor, and capital can move freely, right? That would be a very good one, common market. This is one of the pillars that East Africa is about. But then my question is, the business people, do you feel that the goods are moving freely? Services, labor, and capital, are they? Because that is why we have even come here in the first place, to ask ourselves whether these things are being implemented. Because me as an East African in another country, I don't feel like I move freely. I don't even feel like I can bring goods within Kenya from Uganda and sell them freely. I don't feel like I can easily get a job here. Guys, there's one myth, I don't know whether it's a myth, but it's truth. It is very hard to get a job in Kenya if you are not Kenyan. I don't know, people can tell me, those people who are other East Africans employed in Kenya, you can tell me whether it was easy for you. But the whole phenomenon is, when you come to look for a job, they will first ask themselves whether there is no Kenyan who can do that job that you are looking for. Which is a different case in Uganda, because in Uganda actually most Kenyans are employed. They're actually on top levels, management level. But then here in Uganda, it might be that Ugandans are employed on the lower level. Cleaners, all those people who serve those low-level jobs. So we need to really improve on this. Like how I had said last time in the last episode, we are really not moving very well on these borders. The way we are checked, they are looking for anything that could be something a commodity that you're going to sell in another country, and then they penalize you. So this one is not yet a real truth to us. The second pillar is custom union. The customs unions pillar involves the removal of tariff barriers and harmonization of trade policies among member states. Under the pillar, there is a common external tariff, also known as CET, applied to goods imported from outside East African community, while member states also eliminate internal tariffs between themselves. What does this mean? If an East African community member goes outside East Africa, let's say in China, to bring in goods, those goods coming from East Africa should have one tax, one uniform tax for East Africans. And once it reaches East Africa, and it is to move, let's say, from Kenya to Uganda, we as East African community members should not be imposing taxes on these same goods that have come from China. Are we together? Do we get that point? Like, But is it the case right now? If you people, the business people who are going to China to import goods, once you reach Kenya, while crossing the borders, is it the same case? Do you move your goods freely, or they impose tax on you? That is a very serious case because it hasn't yet been implemented. The taxes are still being felt within East Africa. And the dream would be like these tariffs should be removed so that we are a free market. Imagine how that would be very nice. That I would import the goods from China, and once I reach East Africa, I'm tariff free. Meaning I can trade from Uganda, I can trade from Rwanda, I can trade cross in all these regions without being imposed on taxes. Yeah. And the third one is monetary union. What does this mean? This is the adoption of single currency for East Africa. This is intended to facilitate cross-border trade and investment and enhance economic stability. What does that mean? We should have one currency. If we all decide to say, let's use a shilling, let it be one currency. You know what we are going through right now? It is very hard because the Kenyan shilling is stronger than most of the currency in the region. So if we adopt this single currency, that means we shall have eliminated these other different rates that make us lose some of the money when we're exchanging, right? So that means if we adopt one shilling, let's say we're using one Kenyan shilling, it will be used in Uganda, in Rwanda, in Congo, in Southern Sudan, which will make us really be stable to trade from wherever we are without having fear of exchanging this currency, or without having a fear that these people have a greater currency than the other one, right? I hope we've understood that, because once we adopt it, we are good to go. We won't be saying, Kenyans won't be saying things like 1 million of Uganda. You know what you guys say when you're in Uganda and you say 1 million, Kenyans be like, what? Those who have not traveled, those who don't know that there is also exchanging of currency, they'll be like, what? You have 1 million? And yet when you're in Uganda, it is really little money. When you exchange it in Kenyan shillings, you have very little money. You have something like 30,000. Yeah, so we won't be having those other issues. The 1 million of Kenya will be the same 1 million of Uganda, and we shall be trading well. You get it? Yeah. And the last pillar, which is the fourth, is political federation. This would involve deeper political integration, possibly leading to a single East African government. I know some Ugandans are scared. However, progress towards this pillar has been slower compared to the economic integration pillars. And I don't know why it is very slow. This means that we would be one government. Yeah, we would choose one president, would choose one parliament, would be literally one government, right? But it is very slow, and I don't know why. And in my opinion, this should have been the first one to be implemented, because once it is implemented, once we have one government, that means the rest of the three above would be very much implemented easily, because we would have one president who is speaking for the rest of the East Africans. And then there is also something that I found out, which is the GDP. And someone would ask, what is GDP in full? GDP is full gross domestic product, which means that the money that has been generated from economic activities in a year in one country. Are we together? This is the reason I wanted us to talk about GDP, because I want you guys to see why we really need to integrate. And then we also have what we call GDP per capita, which means the money which each citizen would get if that country was to divide the money amongst its citizens per year, the money that it has generated. So I hope we're understanding each other, so that when I'm talking about GDP, you know what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about GDP per capita, you know what I'm talking about. So according to the statistics of the East African Community Database, I found out that the GDP of Kenya is 87.9 billion. And remember, the population of Kenya is 47.8 million people. Meaning the GDP per capita, if they divided that money amongst its citizens, each citizen would get 1,839 That is how much each citizen of Kenya would get, which makes Kenya the richest country right now in East Africa. Then the second country is Tanzania, whose GDP is 57.3 billion, according to the statistics of 2019. And its population is 54.2 million. Meaning, if they divided that money amongst themselves, each Tanzanian would get $1,057. Uganda, my country, you know, when I'm talking about you have to be excited more, what, you know, have more oomph. We are the third, we're not doing badly. Our GDP is 33.4 billion. Our population, according to 2019, is 39 million. Then GDP per capita, if Sevo said, let us divide this money amongst Ugandans, do you know how much we would get per person in dollars? We would get $786. The fourth one is Rwanda. Their GDP is 9.5 billion in 2019. Their population is 12.1 million. If President Kagame decided to chop that mullah amongst the Rwandans, each Rwandan would get $786, right? Which makes them the fourth in the region. Then we have got our Congolese people. Yes, the DRC. Their GDP is 50 billion. And the population, you guys, these guys are many. Hey, you guys are many. 92.9 million. You're the biggest in the whole region, right? And then, if your president decided to divide the money between you guys, each person would get $538. You see? Which makes it tricky. Then we go to, which is Southern Sudan. Southern Sudan's GDP is 4.67 billion. The population is 12.3 million. If they divided their mullah, each Sudanese would get $379. Then Burundi, you guys, you are the last. Do you know how much you have? Your GDP is 3.3 billion. Your population is 11.7 million. If your president said, let's divide the mullah, do you know how much you would get? $273, which makes you the poorest in the region. But that shouldn't discourage you, because that's why we're talking about integrating. And let me tell you why. If the fourth pillar, which is political federation, was implemented, East Africa would be one country, you guys. And our GDP per capita, if we were to divide all our money amongst ourselves, if we are one country, each citizen would get $772, which would be approximately the GDP of Rwanda. Meaning would be somewhere where Rwanda is. You see why I'm telling you guys not to be discouraged of Burundi? And that is why we need to really integrate ourselves. We implement these East African things so that we are one country. You know, that would be very good news, because right now, as East African community is a home to the two poorest countries in the world, Southern Sudan and Burundi. We are you guys are the poorest, and East Africa being the home of you guys drags us behind. So when I'm saying let us integrate, let us become one East African community, so that we at least at that GDP of Rwanda, to make us at least compete with the rest of the world. That's what I mean. So you guys, when I'm talking about East African community, you should be among the people who are really standing behind and saying, yeah, let our presidents be, let us be together, let us not divide ourselves, let us not fight this East African community, because it's there to help us. So this is all that I had for us, guys. I hope you've understood the GDP per capita, those other things, and why we need these 4 pillars as East Africans. So I'm very excited that I had to go through with you this thing, guys. Thank you very much for listening in. Your comments are welcome. Your likes, your share. Please subscribe. Let us subscribe so that we are very many people hearing this information. Because if we are very few, then again it won't help. East Africans need to hear it. If you are in Rwanda, share. If you are in Southern Sudan, share. If you are in Kenya, share. Right now, Kenya, you are doing very well, but then there is Burundi that we have to pull so that we are one country and we can easily compete with the rest of the people. See you guys.